What's going on, Ma? Welcome, you guys. It's Monday. It's Monday here at the watch party. Here, it's the watch list. I'm Jr. It's been a minute. I feel like it's been a very long time. So long that I guess I decided to come in like 3 minutes late. Just make it a little bit longer. I mean, in reality, what it is technology is trying to screw me over again, bro. Trying to get me again. I had a weird mirrored image of me up here, and everything was backwards. I couldn't have that. But anyway, glad you guys are here. Hope your weekend was great. I hope your holidays were wonderful. As we head into one more, head into the back end of this week, New Year's. Lots was happening. I was trying not to pay attention to it. I got to be honest. Um, so I didn't. But I caught little snippets, some tidbits here and there. And so, of course, in response to that, as I jumped up at 5 o'clock this morning, I decided to look into everything. And therefore, I've got too much. As a matter of fact, I had a startup thing I wanted to do. I had something just as a little bit of a palate, not cleanser, but just to get something else going on this whole stories as we start this week. Again, the best damn day of the week. If you guys enjoy what we're doing here, go ahead, like, subscribe, share this stream. The stories will be back up later as well. Also, I got to run through all this stuff, bro. It's Monday. I got to go over to John Idarola show right after this, the damage report. But I can't skip this because it stuck out to me. It's not a huge story. It's not crazy. It's just a little bit indicative of the way many folks in this country now think, with the kind of folks that we have in the White House. Check out this moment.
Charges pending in both the magistrate court and general sessions. You've got a driving under the influence going to Department magistrate court, and you've got a failure to stop for a blue light and a grand larceny.
Well, that's a lie because I took a drug test.
Going to
I did a
general
blood drug
sessions
test, and
you
it come
could be
back
sentenced
negative.
up to 30 days on the driving under the influence.
Okay, well,
I
I'm
need
not
for you
doing
to
that.
sign right here.
I'm not signing that.
Okay, that's
And,
what I need you to know.
I'm also the traffic failure to stop for a blue light, no injury or death, first offense.
Do you
I'm
want
not
to give me a
signing
phone
that.
number for your mother? Your mother's
I'm
in the
not
back.
signing that either.
You're not going to give me a phone number
No,
for your
I'm
mother to be text message?
No, that's okay.
All right. If you fail to make your court appearance, and your court appearance will be held.
I'm not going to court either.
I understand that. Your court appearance will be held January 22nd, 2026 at 10
Look,
o'clock.
Y'all feed me this garbage and feed lies and put this crap on TV and say I was driving under. Excuse me, I'm talking.
No, you're not.
I'm talking.
Okay.
Driving
Your
under the
bond, sir,
influence and drinking.
Your bond is set at $952
I don't have no bond.
cash
I don't have no
surety,
bond.
and you've got a $20,000 cash surety bond on the failure to stop for a blue light.
Well, I'm not signing either one.
I understand that.
I'll contact Donald Trump if
You'll
I
now
have
exit
to.
now.
Okay. Yep. I guess I'll be contacting Donald Trump then.
Well, I guess so. He's going to be contacting Donald Trump because he's got a laundry list of charges that he's facing there. And just that, that bond hearing that man was looking at in South Carolina. My man's name is William Waters. William Waters. Let me tell you guys what William Waters was doing, and reason why he's not signing any of that crap, and he's going to contact Donald Trump. I'm going to tell you why. William Waters there, led sheriff's deputies on a chase through 3 counties before he surrendered himself to police and was then arrested, not shot, not killed. He was taken to a nearby hospital for an evaluation and later booked into the county jail. At least 2 deputies were injured during that incident as well, and he wasn't shot. One was struck by the open driver's door and dragged along the road when Waters first commandeered that patrol car, a patrol car. He wasn't shot. The officer was also not seriously hurt. Maybe that's why. So another was airlifted to a hospital after a deputy's vehicle crashed during that multi-county chase. The officer, though, is expected to make a full recovery. I'm hanging on the whole thing of like he wasn't shot. People get shot for walking away from cops, running from cops, standing there, sitting in their car. They've been shot, but the names weren't William Waters. Here's more of what happened with William Waters and also what it is that's actually going on with him. So here's the depressing part. Waters suffers from mental health issues, including diagnosed schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. That's what his mother, Kathy, told a local station. She said that he's been hospitalized 8 times in the past year and has stopped taking his prescribed medications. She's also tried to get her some help for her son, but he's apparently refused. She wanted to inform the judge of his condition, but claimed she was not permitted to speak during that bond hearing. Here's a quote. Yes, he did wrong because he's in a full-blown mental episode, but he needs help. He needs help and he needs medication, is what she then pleaded for her son, who, isn't on his meds. She did point that out, and that he needs all that medication and everything. But there was one other aspect that she wanted to let everyone know, or at least to maybe plead the case. Is this video is spreading around, and he said he's going to contact Trump. I get the feeling Donald Trump hasn't picked up the phone yet. Here's the last part. Kathy added that she hopes that her sons will, that her son's situation, I suppose, will raise awareness about mental health conditions and evoke change so that people with certain conditions are not made to go before a judge with nobody there with them. Well, there's the reality of the situation. So he's apparently dealing with schizophrenia, multiple other mental health conditions, and he was there in front of the judge. And maybe he was going through an episode when he stole a cop's car, drove them through 3 counties on a high-speed chase. I assume it was high speed. Then was arrested and now is in front of a judge waiting to talk to Donald Trump. There are some things to be learned, I do think. There are plenty of people who find themselves in front of a judge. In fact, lately we've been seeing some immigration and some deportation hearings that are being held with children in front of judges. But, I guess we don't care about that. I do have some sympathy for Mr. Waters there. If all this is true, I'm taking his mother's word for it. How often do we have folks that are going through mental health episodes standing in front of judges, maybe have schizophrenia issues as well, and none of that is really being taken into account? So I feel you there, if Miss Waters, if that's also her last name, if that's the case. But I do want to point out, it is pretty telling that someone who's suffering with schizophrenic episodes and is off of his medication and is going through mental health issues and is this irate with a judge who's going through the normal process finds a way to also think just like a MAGA supporter who isn't going through any schizophrenia issues and doesn't have mental health issues, but they think the exact same way. I just think it says something about the type of mindset that people figure you're supposed to have in order to blindly follow this guy through everything that he does, says, and promises of anyone else. I think he heard all those times that Donald Trump promised anyone who's committed crimes and is the right skin tone that he'll get them off the hook by any means necessary. It started funny, then it got a little depressing. So apologies for that. I still wanted to do it though. Welcome everyone. That's the beginning of our week. I've got lots happening of real news, not just William Waters. I always call him Winters. William Waters driving through multiple counties and having South Carolina cops on a high-speed chase. Is not just that guy. But we will be monitoring to see if he's called Donald Trump. Oh, I'm sorry, to see if Donald Trump has answered his one call from jail. But speaking of Donald Trump and people in jail, there's updates about Epstein. There's lots of updates about the Epstein situation. There's so much more information that's come out about Epstein. There's so much damn information that's come out about Epstein. I can't keep up with it. So I'm going to find little pieces here and there of what that I saw that interested me over this whole 4 or 5 days of since they've been releasing more and more documents and evidence coming out from right before Christmas, I believe. But this I just saw over the weekend, and it's not necessarily anything from the Epstein files, but it's someone that's worked close with Donald Trump, and he has something to say about, the Epstein files and what it is that we're missing. This is crazy, bro.
When it comes to Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, the media is missing the smoking gun. Now, I've sat on this information for years, and I really didn't want to get into this because this is not in my job description, and it's very dangerous to come out with this publicly. The smoking gun is Miss USA and Miss Teen USA, the pageants which Donald Trump owned for years. Now, how do I know? Because I was one of the judges in these pageants. I trained dozens and dozens of the winners and the runners-up in public speaking to promote their platform. This is all I'm going to say about this. If you're in the media and you're looking for information, start with Billy Bush. Billy Bush hosted the Miss USA, Miss Teen USA multiple times. Nancy O'Dell is another one. And then go down the rabbit hole from there. There are people that know a lot more than those two, but start there. They're celebrities, and start there, go down the rabbit hole. And I think what you're going to find is going to be very, very upsetting. Don't call me. I'm not going to comment. I'm not going on TV and talking about this. This is very dangerous to sit on. If you decide to pursue this in the media, be very, very careful. These people are dangerous.
What odd reality are we living in? That's Steve Siebold, apparently. He posted it on his TikTok, and he's warning folks. In fact, he says what the smoking guns that people are missing on this whole Epstein Trump thing is those pageants. You know, the Miss Teen pageants and the Miss USA, I believe that's the one that Donald Trump was a part of, or he owned. And you know, the pageants are what it is. Maybe it was like fertile recruiting grounds for underage girls as part of, you know, this guy's whole, you know, partnership and buddy relationship that we keep finding out more and more about with Jeffrey Epstein. So this guy's talking, but I feel like this was put out there pretty much quickly enough. This guy's no hero. This guy's talking about smoking guns and talking to other folks, including Billy Bush, if you guys remember who that guy is, related to the, you know, the Bushes of the presidency and our politics. He was the one that was on the bus with Donald Trump when he was talking about grabbing women, you know, by the genitalia. So all that Billy Bush apparently is part of too, because he hosted these things. The small network of people that know so much about this guy have so much information, and apparently Steve Siebold is one of them. But he's gonna put a couple middle fingers in your face and say, "I'm not talking about this anymore. Don't you contact me. I'm not going on TV." What I'm gonna tell you is there's smoking guns that I know all about. Maybe he's asking to be subpoenaed. I don't know. Maybe if we ever get to the point of actually trying folks. But like I said, or like he said, actually, there's things going on with the Teen USA or Miss USA pageants. And the weird thing is, I feel like we already knew all this stuff with Donald Trump and the US Miss Teen USA pageants, because he said it years ago to Howard Stern.
I mean, some of these foreign girls, you know, Mr. Trump, in my country, we say hello with vagina. And
what you could also say is the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now,
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, you know, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. You know, I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
You're like
everything
a doctor.
is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? You know, they're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away.
Donald Trump liked to brag about how he got away with things like walking to women's dressing rooms, specifically at, you know, the Miss USA pageants, and looking at naked women that are competing in his pageant, and he can kind of, you know, get away with it. The guy who leads the same party that's talking about how trans women will walk up into women's bathrooms and then, you know, will be skeevy and looking at people all the time, and then may potentially even sexually assault them, because, you know, that's what trans women do. It's in their DNA, according to the people that follow the guy who admitted years and years ago, 20 years ago, that he pervs out and walks into the Miss USA pageants because he owns the place and he gets to do whatever the hell he wants. I feel like Steve Siebold, who's a coward and won't say more than what he did say in that smoking gun, I feel like he might have more information about how it is Donald Trump operates. But, you know, there's tons of people that are looking to, you know, protect Donald Trump. And, you know, since we're talking about victims, maybe some of those were those folks in the Miss Teen USA pageants. This idiot, this is a quick flashback from a few months ago. Kevin O'Leary, you know, businessman, big smart guy, apparently he's not, was talking about what victims may actually want, despite all things that we're hearing.
She's been convicted, right? She's been convicted of actually some very serious crimes. And many of the victims are publicly, they implicate her very directly in this whole scheme.
She is a felon convicted.
But why won't Trump rule out pardoning her? Why are they even talking to her about an immunity deal? Why?
Okay, if any of you cared about the victims, you wouldn't drag these women who are in childbearing years now, some of them having children, back into the limelight, back into the same story to expose them again to this hideous outcome, because these guys,
you don't.
So you want to do that?
Do it to somebody else.
Them,
They could be doing it to somebody else
they
right
don't
now.
want
As
you
we
to
sit here on
help them
TV.
anymore. They want them.
How do you know that? What are you basing
I know
that
with certainty they'd
on?
rather
You've
live out
spoken
their
to the
lives
victims
than
who
keep
said
being
they
brought back
don't want justice
talking
brought
about
forth.
Epstein. You really think they want that now?
You're speaking on behalf of women, saying that you've personally spoken to victims who said they do not want justice
spoken
pursued.
to no one. I'm just being pragmatic.
So then that is an
You're
irresponsible
dragging out
statement.
women.
You have no idea what these young women
If
want.
it was you, you'd rather get on with your life? Aren't you
No,
done
if
with
it
this?
were me, I
You
would
wanna
want
keep-
justice pursued.
Here's
what do you want?
Here's who should get on with his life.
The truth is out. There's a prisoner and there's a dead guy. That's the truth. All right.
And that's
what
the
happened.
only truth that exists.
But here's the truth that we.
Just want to remind you guys of the way that this has been getting rolled out and how the protectionism is coming from so many different corners. Yet we keep seeing all of this. Tiffany Cross had to straighten Kevin O'Leary out there to point out what victims may want, because as he pointed out, he never spoke to victims, but does this guy who was completely unaffected and potentially knows many of the folks who were implicated in this whole thing, he has nothing to add except how much these victims want it all just go away and there's no accountability whatsoever. It's weird. It's like we don't have victims and survivors of the Epstein child sex trafficking scandal. It's like we don't have them to tell us what it is that they want.
Do you believe that you are somewhere on this page, somewhere on these pages?
I would think so, absolutely. I was the first victim they reached in New York. So I would think that my deposition is there. I mean, I was questioned pretty heavy. So I think that somewhere along the lines, with all this distraction from yesterday on the 19th, I think President Trump thought he was going to get away with it. But we can clearly see that still he is trying to protect himself and other important people in his life.
Not only himself, but maybe other important people in his life. That's one of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. But maybe she's like a Kamala Harris supporter, right? That always makes people, MAGA people's brain just like mute out. Maybe she was a supporter of Kamala Harris and she's got this vindictive response and everything she wants from Donald Trump. She's just assuming things. Hey, here's this woman. Her name is Haley Robeson. She was seen out in front of the Capitol amongst those other multiple survivors that were speaking on the same day that Donald Trump kept calling it a Democratic hoax, and they demanded answers. And oddly, the opposite of what Kevin O'Leary said they wanted, which was, accountability for all of these perpetrators who carried out all these acts on them. But this is as of right now. Let's see what she has to say about the revelations that we're finding out
about Trump, right? Just to be clear, in terms of pointing the finger,
yes.
Yes, exactly. And you said that before, that you have never heard anything to implicate him.
Exactly. It wasn't until I started meeting some of the other women from different countries and different states where I really started to hear their stories. And of course, as a survivor sister and going through what I went through, I do believe these girls. But at the end of the day, I am no longer supporting this administration. I redact any support I've ever given to him, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel. I am so disgusted with this administration. I think that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel both need to resign, and I would love to see number 47 get impeached over this. And I'm just waiting.
Should Pam Bondi be held in contempt, you think, for the release?
She needs to be held more than in contempt. Absolutely.
Okay, Haley, stand by about Trump, right? Just to be clear.
Former Trump supporter there, Haley. She now wants him, impeached. She wants Pam Bondi to face some accountability for the way that she's been covering this up. I mean, it's weird that we have to, listen to folks have to keep putting their faces out there to say that they want some justice for the crimes that were committed against them. And, the folks who are obviously covering it up maybe need to stop trying to cover it up. But we're going to keep playing this game about it's not the most obvious, stark view into what this guy's life has been. And now how he's all about trying to cover it up. Again, over the holiday weekend, I'm not going to read you the long one that he posted. I think it was right at Christmas. Maybe it was on Christmas. This guy was talking about Epstein on Christmas. Not going to read that long one at the bottom because, he's crazy. But he did follow up and somehow shared the first one and said this because more pages keep coming out. He says now 1 million more pages on Epstein are found. They're found. Okay. DOJ is being forced to spend all of its time on this Democrat-inspired hoax. When do they say no more and work on election fraud, etc.? The Dems are the ones who worked with Epstein, not the Republicans. Release all of their names, embarrass them, and get back to helping our country. The radical left doesn't want people talking about Trump and Republican success. Only a long ago dead Jeffrey Epstein. It's just another witch hunt. He should probably not mention anything. Like he probably shouldn't mention Jeffrey Epstein if he's gonna, bring it up unsolicited. Because when people ask him about it, he keeps saying, "Why are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? I thought that guy was dead. I thought it killed this whole thing a long time ago with a really, really bad cover up." But you keep bringing it up, bro. Maybe he's sweating. Maybe it's like the necktie is a little bit too tight and that loose skin right at his neck is getting a little uncomfortable, and he's got to loosen it up a little bit. And every once in a while, he has to just point out what it is that's stressing his ass out. Because as I said, we're seeing more and more and more pop out from these release. Like I said, there's tons. Let me focus on this a little bit, because this is a bit of an offshoot, and it's weird, and maybe we should think about why they did this. Journalist Julie K. Brown posted this redacted flight log and flight information from these releases of from the Department of Justice as they've been forced, which they didn't completely do, as we already know. She said, "Does anybody at the DOJ want to tell me why my American Airlines booking information and flights in July of 2019 are part of the Epstein files?" She's attached to a grand jury subpoena, as the flight itinerary includes my maiden name and I did book this flight. Why was the DOJ monitoring me? It's actually a really good question, because as I point out, she's a journalist that covered the story, and I'll tell you how much in depth she covered that story. But this did catch the attention of oversight Democrats, who also took that post and reshared it and said themselves that the Department of Justice needs to explain why travel information and booking itineraries for a journalist are in the Epstein files. I don't know. Can't figure it out. Why also, since they're doing this huge redaction, campaign, why they decided to let that go? Because they're kind of sloppy. Because they got a bunch of amateurs doing it. We already saw the way that people are able to unredact some of the things that they've redacted, because they're clowns and they have no idea what they're doing. But really fast, what is it about Julie K. Brown that they maybe were tracking her and checking her flight logs in 2019? She also wrote a Substack where she addressed that matter, and she said that she expected to see her name on the Epstein files because of her reporting. But then she added, "What I didn't expect to see was an American Airlines flight record from 2019 with my full name on them, including my maiden name," as she pointed out, "which I don't use professionally. It's an unusual name, so it's clear it's me." So she went through all that painstaking effort to talk about how this is happening to her, and she's looking for those answers. But this is what it is that she was doing as far as reporting on this that maybe gives us the answer. She's credited with helping to reopen that case against Epstein after the mysterious financier was allowed to plead guilty to 2 state-level prostitution offenses in 2008 as part of a plea deal with Florida prosecutors that saw him escape more serious federal charges. So there's all these folks that are in Trump's orbit currently that were kind of in his orbit as well back in 2008, when he was able to skirt those charges and plead to that lesser degree. And now we're seeing how all of this has been covered up for decades now. I mean, it crosses administrations, but it still goes back to people who work with Donald Trump now. So last thing from Julie K. Brown, at least what is that she was doing, and maybe the answers to why they were tracking her in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. The Miami Herald began publishing a series of Brown's reports in November of 2018 that saw her identify 80 potential victims of Epstein's sexual abuse, some of which were as young as 13 years old when the abuse took place, and also to speak to 8 individuals about their experiences. She was exposing things back when very few people were paying as close of attention as the tons of people are paying to it now. And maybe they were trying to see where she was going next, trying to see where her travels were taking her, maybe what kind of reporting she may be doing, maybe a direct and complete monitoring of this woman. And we're finding out about that as well. Are there going to be answers for any of this stuff? Or I guess oversight Democrats are going to ask. And then I guess the answer is going to be, what a stupid question. How dare you? Did you know the Democrats are Democrats? It's always the excuse, but there still haven't been, any charges and arrests. Maybe we should see more of this information and get to charging folks. Maybe we should finally listen to these survivors, unlike what Kevin O'Leary was saying, and how they want some accountability for this. It always should come back to that. That's why they're covering it up to this degree. Let's move on, you guys. I've got lots. And trust, I'm sure there's 17 other things that came out over the past 3 or 4 days from the Epstein release that I have not even, my eyes haven't caught a glimpse of yet. Probably some horrific stuff. More redacted versions, badly redacted portions that include Donald Trump's name that we were told so many times, like his name is nowhere in it. I wonder what they're covering up. Anyway, let's move on. But in case you guys are just rolling in, appreciate you. Hi, how are you doing? Welcome, you guys. It's a Monday. It's the best damn day of the week, as usual on the stream. And there's tons to talk about. Too many things happening. But what was the best thing you guys that happened for y'all's weekends, maybe over the holiday? Did you get some relaxation in? I'll check out your answers in a bit because I feel like we kind of forget we're supposed to relax a little bit despite the madness that's happening in our world, so we can re-up and get back into this. I feel like I've got a little bit of an extra charge happening. Maybe my few days off were helpful. Anyways, let's jump to this. Let's jump to this next story. So we had a border patrol agent show up at this woman's house. They showed up there and they were looking to arrest, I guess, someone named Jerry, but there was a fence, and the way the border patrol and ICE agents operate is they can't move around those. Luckily, I don't think that's a bad thing. But this is what the interaction looked like because people are always asking for warrants. And so they showed up with one.
Hey, can you have Jayar come out? About a judicial warrant versus an attorney. Yeah, how does it make a difference?
An attorney. The warrant, the arrest warrant doesn't have to be by the judge, and it has to have the address where you're trying to arrest someone.
Yeah, so, right here. You saw him go inside the house.
But it's not on the sign, and it does not list the address. So you cannot arrest this person here. This is not an arrest warrant. You're arresting him on my property. And it's not signed by a judge. So that would be
Can we talk to Jerry?
You should keep pictures of it for you.
Yeah, you have a right to remain silent too, and not. She already explained to you all. It's very clear. You don't have a judicial warrant.
You're just stop out of here.
Have Jerry come out? No.
No, Jerry can't come out and play right now. Can you let Jerry out? So these clowns show up at this woman's house with a search warrant, except she looked at it. It's a weird thing. You can glance at these things. She looked at it and she goes, this doesn't have a judge's signature on it. And also the address, there's no address. What are you doing? It was embarrassing. And you saw, a little bit of fear in his voice to be exposed like that. Because I guess they think everyone is as dumb as they are. So she rejected them, ran their asses off because they came with a template for a search warrant and decided to fill in whatever it is they could. I feel like that's something, illegal. Maybe they shouldn't be able to do things like that. Or when they do things like that, they should probably be, arrested and charged. But, this is a fascist country now. This is them getting run off after that embarrassing episode.
Look at these guys, these fuckers. They know exactly what they're doing. That's why they're covering their faces. Shame! 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 You refuse
Okay, the paper is back to you, so now you have to go. Okay? Fuera migra! Fuera migra! Fuera migra!
My Spanish is a little bit rusty, but I feel like fuera migra means something like get the fuck out of here. I mean, there's small victories every once in a while. I mean, it's based in having a knowledge of your rights and a knowledge of what is it they're trying to do and how much they fake these things. So they show up with this fake ass warrant and think they're going to get by. They'll probably show up after that next and just start kicking indoors because, again, it's lawlessness. But speaking of kicking indoors, it's not like they haven't been doing that before. Here's a New York Times, a quick little report they had about a specific incident where, again, this is in Bell, California, where Border Patrol, ICE agents, whoever, who cares? They're all Gestapo. How they went and blew up this man's door, but you'll never guess of the reasons behind it.
As for George, he declined our interview requests, but Jenny said he was at work delivering coffee supplies. The morning immigration agents exploded their way into their home.
They called after and they told him, "Did you find out what happened in your house?" That for me, that was just not right.
We did not get a response to questions about why federal agents let George go, then a week later used such high-risk tactics to arrest him. He immediately turned himself in, Prosecutors didn't request detention, and a judge sent him home the same day. The Times found no past record of violent offenses. In the federal complaint against George, the prosecutor mentions a previous incident when he allegedly heckled Border Patrol agents. But he's officially charged with injuring government property. And the crux of the case is the accusation that George deliberately collided with the Border Patrol pickup, which had stopped in a manner that should have allowed any car traveling behind him to stop safely. But this claim is directly contradicted by the agent himself.
I was going to go off the curb, but I couldn't, so I slammed on my brakes and it was right on me.
And the allegation of a deliberate collision is not evident in the footage. In fact, brake lights indicate George is braking as soon as the pickup begins to stop. In mid-July, Bovino posted this ominous video of the raid at George's house, with text warning people will face justice regardless of their immigration status. The next day, George finds out the federal government has dropped the charges. His case is dismissed.
So apparently previous to this, they tracked this guy back down, went to his house and blew his door open. That is after, as you saw in the other video, that blue truck, which is what the ICE or Border Patrol agents were driving, drove by him, cut him off, and then brake checked him in front of him after that. And that was the damage to apparently police or authorities' property. But they come back and blow the door open and then move on because they have nothing else on them. It's intimidation factors. It's a gang. It's moving through our cities and it's attacking and terrorizing people like terrorists do. But, maybe they should have had a fake ass warrant in their hands before they went and started blowing open doors. But really fast, at the back end of that quick New York Times report, they were talking about some of the propaganda that's put forward by people like Greg Bovino, the guy who's the head, or at least in the streets, the gang leader for Border Patrol that's going around and acting like he can, do anything that he wants. This is that quick 20-second video that he posted of propaganda of them blowing this man's door open for the sake of putting some kind of weird music behind it and thinking that this is going to promote their activity. Your tax dollars going to terrorists, going to video editors, going to people who toss some music on the back end of it as they blow open someone's door and not charging him with anything because they had nothing to charge him with. And after their bullshit excuses get exposed by literally their guy talking about what is he did on the streets himself. Again, we keep seeing it. We keep seeing it. When is the accountability going to come? Because again, the whole point is to show how cool they are. We blew open this guy's door. We're terrorists. When are they going to finally get arrested? Terrorists sometimes post the videos of their actions because they want some clout amongst other folks to recruit more terrorists. Just like what ICE and Border Patrol is doing. They're led by this big terrorist leader. His name is, it's Donald Trump and Tom Homan, all the rest of these fascists that are running the country right now. But thinking about that video, that weird sound behind it, and look how cool we are, slow motion getting out of the trucks because we're little bitches. They don't want anyone else recording them, though. Here's some information about this leaked Justice Department memo about what is it they expect people to do before they come back and blow open doors with grenades or whatever the hell they're using. As Bovino and the DHS have embraced the power of cinema to document immigration arrests and promote current policies, like as you saw in that last video, the Trump administration is also cracking down on individuals who choose to record immigration operations. A December 4th memo, originally leaked by journalist Ken Klippenstein, the Justice Department encourages federal prosecutors to press domestic terrorism charges against people for, quote, doxing law enforcement officers. While undefined in the memo, doxing in this context is understood to mean the publishing of information that identifies law enforcement officers, which the Justice Department insinuates is a threatening activity used to silence opposing speech. What opposing speech? These are the guys who are in the streets attacking people. silence opposing speech, limit political activity, change or direct policy outcomes, and prevent the functioning of a democratic society. Bro, they're living in, this fake Donald Trump world where up is down and left is right, and everything that they do apparently is in accordance with the law, and you recording them is something that's going to require charges of domestic terrorism. Here's more about this doxing definition. The definition mirrors previous statements by DHS officials early this year, including a statement made by Kristi Noem. She said violence is anything that threatens agents and their safety. So it's doxing them, it's videotaping them, where they're at and when they're out on operations. But weird thing, much of what the Trump administration tries to paint as the unacceptable doxing of law enforcement agents is often observers merely recording on-duty officers, which is an activity firmly protected by the First Amendment when no physical interference or danger is present, an important tool for holding public officials accountable, of course. So by broadly defining domestic terrorism to include something as vague as doxing, the Trump administration is rolling out this nationwide policy of intimidating and threatening people who attempt to observe and also, of course, record their operations. That's what David Beer, who's the director of immigration studies at the Cato Institute, pointed out. So they can make what they think are cool videos of them blowing up someone's door. And then if you stand there or follow them or record them attacking someone and breaking the law, they can then violate your First Amendment rights by calling it domestic terrorism to document their illegal activities. It's like there's a 34-time felon in the White House who's making illegal activities legal and then legal activities illegal, because he's always on the wrong side of the law. So he decided to just ignore the law, stomp on it, flip it upside down, and say that he's the guy who's bringing you peace and prosperity, despite all the reality that you see it right in front of your face. So it makes you wonder, at what point do you think fascists are going to stop on their road to more fascism, more suppression of oppositional views, and also arresting people, American citizens, deporting them, things like that. At some point, what they're then relying on after all those things get blown up is violence. So what do you think they're expecting to eventually see from a community and from a country and from a citizenry who's got like terrorists in their face every day? It's not going to last that long. I'm just saying. As lazy as we are in this country, it's got to get to a point. Maybe. Let's move on, though. I just want to point that out. Your update on the bullshit that's coming out of Greg Bovino's face and Donald Trump and all those guys. It's like a 18-front war that these guys got as they're attacking this country. It's insane. But, in order to live in this world of Donald Trump apparently attacking citizens, unleashing terrorists on our community, destroying the economy, all those things that he's doing, well, the one thing that they want to make sure somehow, evens out all these perceptions of reality in our faces is to send some of the, biggest ass kissers, the maybe forgotten foot soldiers, the people who drop to a knee before anything else and will go on TV to embarrass themselves, the way that Tim Scott, for some reason, has decided to do. This is embarrassing, bro.
Democrats don't seem to want to give the president credit. Would you like to set them straight?
1,000%. What a Christmas miracle for the American people. The working class Americans who made President Trump our 47th president deserve to live their version of the American dream, Greg. And that's why the president continues to deliver every single day more and more goodies for the American people. They've earned it. They've earned his respect. They've earned his support. And now he's delivering. You went through a litany of areas, not just on gas prices. I put gas in my car, it's $2.35 a gallon this past week, Greg, but also groceries. Inflation down to 2.7%. Our economy growing faster than anyone expected. Why? Because the president is committed like a laser to working class people. He understands their pain, working paycheck to paycheck. You need more of your money and you need prices to go down. And under President Trump, yes, it's happening for the first time in nearly 5 years. Under President Biden, Greg, The average family lost over $1,000 a month in spending power. That's putting coal in the stockings of the American people, while President Trump delivers, yes, a Christmas miracle 11 months after just becoming our 47th president. Our economy is hot in a good way. And the best news is 2026 is a year of affordability because President Trump will deliver even better benefits for the American people. They deserve to choose their path. We do not believe government is God. We believe in Jesus as Lord, and the American people can decide for themselves how they will live their American dream.
Did he practice that at home? Like, was that like in the mirror type of thing? It's like maybe he's been watching a lot of Howard Nutlick and it's been the constant used car salesman energy. Not only people, yes, they're coming for Donald Trump. Yes, it'll happen. Who knew? You know, he's running the country and like the with the even hand of the Lord. They don't. When did he get on to Jesus and God? Like, maybe he got his talking points confused, and he just left church and he's trying to talk about how Donald Trump is their new Lord and Savior, but the wires got crossed. This guy is embarrassing. He's been doing this for a long time. I thought he's been shunned enough onto the side, after he was up there talking about how he loves Donald Trump during the campaign and it was hoping for some kind of cabinet position, and then they said, wait, Tim, but bro, you're black, bro, get the fuck out of here. So he figures the best way to maybe get within the good graces of Donald Trump's two ass cheeks is to worm his way in there with this weird praise that nobody's buying. I feel like the host was like, okay, reel it in, bro. Let's reel it in like a little bit, because I was hoping that we can move on to the next segment without everyone turning the channel. But he's talking about how great the economy is. That was one of the avenues of the ass kissing that Tim Scott decided to go along with, popping out of nowhere. But here's Kelly Loeffler, who's actually in his administration, and she apparently got the memo too.
Look, small business optimism is really spiking under President Trump after 4 very difficult years under Joe Biden. Look, small business optimism is above its 52-year average, and according to the U.S. Chamber, in the third quarter, it reached all-time records. And a lot of it thanks to the working families tax cut, that small businesses finally have certainty about what their tax rate's going to be, that 20% pass-through deduction, now the 179 expensing. That means that higher limits on the ability to expense immediately for purchases they make in capital equipment, and also R&D expensing. So I don't think small business owners have ever been so excited to pay their taxes thanks to President Trump. He brought us the blue-collar boom in his first term, and now he's going to add to that the small business boom. What are the things Girl looks?
I'm not sure how many small business owners are out there, but are you excited to pay your taxes? Never before has small business owners been so excited to pay taxes ever in history. They've never been so excited about it. Considering this whole year they've been getting, pillaged and their shit's been getting stolen from them with all these horrible policies as they're destroying people's lives. It's like, maybe they're looking forward to paying their taxes based off of, I don't know, the bankruptcy they had to go through, the loss of their business. Who knows? Maybe there's like no customers anymore because how everyone is struggling. But Kelly Loeffler there has to tell everyone how excited they are to pay their taxes. You know what? The only group that's more excited about tax season is probably those billionaires, all the oligarchs that are surrounding Donald Trump, because they're not looking forward to paying taxes. They don't pay taxes. Matter of fact, there's this weird lady with the same face that Kelly Loeffler's got. And this was just from a few months ago during the summer. And she was talking about small business owners just now. Think of what she said a few months ago about them.
As I've walked factory floors, small businesses, main streets with business owners and employees alike, they're feeling the impacts of high inflation, whether it's in their car purchases, their credit cards, buying a home. And small businesses would expand, but the cost of capital right now is disproportionately high to where we are in the interest rate cycle. It's
what? The inflation is destroying people. They got all these high costs. Is this the same year that these small business owners are looking forward to paying their taxes? There's always a video of them talking the exact opposite talking point that they're now saying to try and save Donald Trump. Their entire careers, everything that they're willing to put their life and their credibility on the line for is to protect this guy. Like this one guy, the one who's fallen asleep in like ass kissing sessions, the guy who can't get a story straight, the guy who's got extra bruises on both backs of both of his hands now. For some reason, these weak ass people who consider themselves strong continue to follow the weakest, most racist piece of shit in the country. He's also a criminal. It's really easy. You can like get rid of his ass and then afterwards go back to your really bad belief systems and your policies too, except their one main, their one main thought process, their one the principle that they've all got together is their white supremacy, and they're willing to sacrifice everything else for, said white supremacy. They'll tell us that everything we're seeing is not the case. So let's get Harry into it. I usually don't play this guy, but he's fun. He's talking about the reality, except for the things that, Tim Scott and Kelly Loeffler are saying.
Look, 2025 was not exactly the best year for the president of the United States. He started off in pretty gosh darn good territory, right? Trump's net approval rating in January, he was 6 points above water, pretty much above where he was during his entire first term in office. But look what happens come December, 12 points underwater, way, way down there. That is an 18-point decline during the course of the year. Now, what has driven Donald Trump's decline in his net approval rating? Well, it's independents. That is the name of the game, baby. Look, in January, Donald Trump's net approval rating among independents was about even, -1 point. Not too hot to trot, but not too bad either. Now, we're talking about 43 points underwater come December. That is a decline of 42 points on his net approval rating. Donald Trump is hanging out with Jacques Cousteau. That is how far underwater Donald Trump is with independents at this point.
So we'll see how campaign season goes. I mean, as I pointed out last week, there's a lot of bad signs. There's fractures within the party, as we already know about. And as we see those numbers continue to drop, they're going to tell us that actually all that's wonderful. It's great news. And I guess the last 20 or so % of folks that want to believe it will continue to believe it, or they'll say that they believe it. They might need a little bit of help from people like this woman on Fox's The Five. I think this is like the B team. It must have been during the holidays. I obviously see the Christmas trees in the background, but she has a great excuse as to why this guy sucks so much and why everyone is noticing.
Kaylee, across the aisle on the Republican side, there is enormous unity around President Trump, and I think we're starting to see there are obviously real questions about who will pick up the mantle from him after the midterms. But there does seem to be tremendous unity, and I think it's largely because of the way President Trump has remade the Republican Party, focusing on really important issues that matter to people.
Yeah, he's at 87% approval rating among Republicans, according to the latest poll. And I think, to Paul's point, this is part of what we're seeing from the Democratic side of the aisle. It's a lot of cope over the fact that they don't really have a vision. They don't have a next generation leader who's going to step in and take the place. And so we hear a lot about how Trump's approval ratings are cratering and blah, blah, blah. I mean, look, yes, they're down from where they were earlier in the year. That's to be expected. But I think in some ways, Trump is a victim of his own success, and that voters expect a lot from him because they know that he can deliver on it. You look at some of his biggest policy achievements from this past year, the elimination of Iran's nuclear capacities, cracking down on the southern border, basically eliminating illegal immigration across the southern border, keeping women's spaces for women. These are all issues where he's not just above water with voters. He's overwhelmingly supported by 80 to 90% of Americans on these key issues.
But he's not. In fact, his numbers actually kind of suck. Hey, here's some of those areas where his numbers suck. Because like I said, I don't play a lot of Harry Hinton, but sometimes when he's got facts, he's got facts. But that lady wanted you to think that his success is the reasons why his numbers are dropping so much. He's so successful that people expect perfection, and despite the fact that he's their deity, he's not perfect. In fact, he completely sucks. Here, let me show you those areas where he completely sucks that she doesn't want you to remember.
Well, let's look at two of the key issues, right? The economy, the reason that Donald Trump was elected to a second term back in January, he was in pretty good shape at +9 points on the net approval rating. But look, come December, 16 points underwater. That is a decline, doing the math quickly here, of 25 points for Donald Trump on the key issue of the day, the economy, the reason he got a second term. And then, of course, immigration, which Donald Trump has really focused in on during his second term in office, something he has been focusing on since he first ran for the presidency all the way back in 2015. Well, in January, he was 9 points above water on the issue. Now he's 6 points below water on the issue. So on the key issues of the economy, inflation, going in the wrong direction for Donald Trump.
Going in the wrong direction. This is the wrong direction for Donald Trump. This guy, like, he has lots of energy. What kind of energy drink does he drink? That's what I want to know. So in those very same issues, I guess the ones that he's overboard on, that Kaylee McGee White wanted you to think he was actually doing really well on, immigration. Deportations and attacking folks in the streets, and the economy, where he's destroying everyone's lives. In those key areas, he's underwater. It's almost like you have to literally not listen or pay attention to anything in order to buy this madness that they're selling, folks. It just doesn't make any sense. I wonder if I should play this last part. It takes a little bit more time, and I got to go over to damage report, and I can't be pressed up against that time. But I do want you guys to remember one other thing. There are those factions within the party. There's folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene who are saying that she's detached, but then still very MAGA, however that works, just to find the right positioning for herself. But all you got to understand is what's happening in your life, what you're seeing in your community, and what you're seeing with the country overall and world now. As we've also pointed out, this guy's attacking more and more nations, the peace president. But like I said, if you start bombing and killing people, that's you ending wars, not starting them. I'm tired of these folks. I'm not tired of you guys, though, even though I do have to go. Running over to TDR just now, I did have one full other extra story. Maybe I'll hang on that until tomorrow. Hopefully it's still alive by then as we're going through this week. Small programming note as I roll out of here. Thursday, yes, again on Thursday, the New Year's Day, another day where we'll have to, we won't be doing the live stream, but I'm here all through the rest of the week. But Thursday, we take another moment to usher in the new year. Good to see you guys. But also last Friday, one more thing before I jump out of here. On Friday, I wasn't able to do the stream again. I needed another day after a very long holiday with family and everything. I did post on the watch list page about whether or not something's happening. So anybody, if you guys miss what's happening, if something happens at the last minute, if my technology jumps on my back like it does sometimes, or if in the moment of last Friday, I just need to cancel the stream for the day, go to the post section of the page. I'm not sure if you guys know how to get to it, but I recently found it, so it's not like I'm trying to school you on something I've known so much about. But there's the posts section. That's where I'll put updates if you're wondering what's happening with the live stream. Anyone who does the live audience, check it out there. I'll try and keep you updated when things go crazy, wonky, or even just a little bit late. I'll be all over on top of those things. But we'll see you guys in a few minutes. Those of you that travel over to the damage report to hang out with John, I'll be there as well for the next hour and a half, man. I'm just getting warmed up. We'll see you guys over there in a few more minutes. Love you. Good to see you. Hope your holidays were great. And we'll see you on the back end of this. See you, man.